No, but
No, we go down.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Would you all please rise and join us for the pledge? I pledge allegiance. Good evening again, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Please let the record reflect that all board members are present. Announcements. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on an agenda item? Thank you. Can I have a motion for the approval of minutes of the September 22nd, 2020 planning session?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Recognition. Mrs. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. And I'm going to ask you and Mr. McCann to join me in front of the dais here. Come on. Kind of nice that we're spaced because then you can see everybody here. Each year,
School Board Recognition Week is observed by more than 700 school districts across New York State. And typically it's held later in the month, and this year it's October 19th through 23rd. And it is designated by the School Boards Association as a time to promote awareness and to recognize the important work that our board trustees do each and every day of the year. So, West Islip is joining school districts, as I mentioned, across the state to celebrate and honor our board members for their commitment to West Islip and its children. It takes strong schools to build a strong community, and Mr. Geller, Mr. McCann, Mr. Antonello, Mr. Compitello, Mrs. LaRosa, Mr. McGinnis, and Mr. Tussey devote countless hours to ensuring that our schools meet the needs of all of our students in this ever-changing world. And boy, we know that in the midst of this pandemic, this is an ever-changing and rapidly changing world. So therefore, on behalf of the West Islip Union Free School District and our entire community, I present this certificate to Board President Steve Geller and Vice President Pete McCann. And the certificate will be hung in the boardroom or outside in the lobby. So on behalf of all of us, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Burns. Personnel, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Geller. I'd like a motion to approve the amended leave of absence for Kimberly Kennedy at elementary, effective September 16th, 2020 to October 8th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like a motion to approve the leave of absence for Lisa Cosgrove, library media specialist, effective September 24th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I would like a motion to approve the probationary appointment of Olga Alma Cruz, part-time food service worker, effective October 9th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I would like a motion to approve the probationary appointment of Tyler Bell, special education aide, effective October 13th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have a motion for the approval of probationary appointment of Mary Ann Denner, office application specialist, effective November 9th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have a motion for the approval of Jennifer Garofalo, part-time food service worker, effective October 13th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have a motion for the approval of the leave of absence for Patricia Denninger, administrative assistant, September 22nd, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have a motion for the approval of the resignation of Wendy Kokar, health office aide, effective October 8th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have a motion for the approval of the retirement of Patricia Ford, security receptionist paraprofessional, effective October 5th, 2020, after 20 years.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have a motion for the approval of the substitute custodians as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have a motion for the approval of the substitute food service workers as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have a motion for the approval of the substitute nurse as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have a motion for the approval of the substitute paraprofessional as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have a motion for the approval of the permanent substitute teachers as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have a motion for the approval of the substitute teachers as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have a motion for the approval of the SAT proctors as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have a motion to approve an increase in salary for substitute teachers to $130 per diem, and after 30 days to $150 per diem for the 2020-2021 school year?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Mrs. Morrison, curriculum update.
Thank you, Mr. Geller. On Tuesday, September 29th, we were very fortunate to welcome back successfully our elementary and middle school students to our school buildings. I would like to take this opportunity to extend a heartfelt appreciation to our administrators, our teachers, our parents, and most importantly, our students for working collaboratively together to make it a success. I've had the pleasure of walking throughout the buildings over the last 2 weeks, and our students and our teachers are truly happy to be back together in one classroom with each other. So thank you very much for your support in making that happen. The district continues to keep increased in-person instructional time for high school students a top priority, and we continue to discuss the feasibility and options to do so on a daily basis. 10 accomplished musicians from West Islip High School have been selected to take part in this year's NYSMA All Festival in the following areas: Treble Chorus, Wind Ensemble, Mixed Chorus, Symphonic Band, and Treble Chorus. The selected students will rehearse and perform virtually with their counterparts throughout the state. Congratulations to our high school music students and teachers on this outstanding accomplishment. The K-12 Curriculum Council met on Tuesday, September 22nd, to discuss and review the curriculum and instruction focus for the school year. It was determined that continual professional development to support the ongoing instructional technology needs related to the various learning models that we could be facing this year are necessary, as well as a review of our current instructional technology programs to ascertain their effectiveness and utilization. Additional topics will be added throughout the year as necessary. Secondary Curriculum Council meets again on October 20th, and the Elementary Curriculum Council meets again on November 17th. Superintendent's Conference Day is coming up on Tuesday, November 3rd. Plans are currently underway to provide our teachers and staff with an EdCamp-like virtual learning experience and time to put into practice the skills that they learn to support student learning. Session topics currently include effectively managing virtual classrooms, curriculum building with technology, hybrid learning model, assessing student understanding, sharing of effective assessment practices that limit disruptions to the classroom, blended learning, expanding the physical classroom environment to the virtual setting, Google Classroom and Google Meets beyond the basics, and sharing of effective virtual instructional practices. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Morrison. Mr. Antonello will discuss the meeting of the Education Committee.
And thank you, Mr. Geller. The Education Committee met October 6th at 7 p.m. at Beach Street Middle School. In attendance from myself, Superintendent Bernadette Burns, Mr. Peter McCann, Mr. Don Morrison, Mr. Steve Geller, Mrs. Lisa Pilati, Mr. Brian Taylor, Mr. Tom Compitello. There were 4 items discussed. The first one was the full-time return of K-8 students. Mrs. Morrison reported that there was a general feeling of excitement among the students and the teachers, with lots of positive feedback. The second topic discussed was the 2020-2021 K-12 Comprehensive School Counseling Plan. All K-12 kids have access to a school counselor. This is especially important this year, of course. The counselors will push into the classrooms. They will focus on academic success in these difficult times. All counselors have been trained in trauma related to COVID. The third item discussed was the high school lifeguard class. Even though the pool is not open to everyone yet, there will be lifeguard training class. Only 10 students per class will be allowed. Separate locker rooms will be used. The last item discussed was the elementary school assessment calendar. The calendar was finalized on October 5th. It was skewed to allow for the beginning of assessments like Ames Web and benchmarking. The meeting ended at 7:45.
Can I just ask a question? I don't know, Ms. Morrison or Mr. Antonello. Excuse me? Can't hear me?
No.
I'm wondering if any discussion was had at the Education Committee or level regarding adding Wednesday back into an in-person day for the high school, if that is beginning to be discussed, or at this point, if we can put that on the agenda for future discussion.
There were people in attendance that asked about that. Yes.
And we are looking at all of our options as it relates to the high school. Actually, I had it in my comments, so we can segue to that right now. We have been receiving many requests from parents pretty much on a daily basis about getting the high school back to full-time. It's come up in practically every PTA meeting at which I've been in attendance. And we are as anxious as everybody else to get the students back. The high school poses different logistical issues than the elementary and middle school students, particularly in some of the larger rooms and in the hallway. That being said, we have had discussions with our administrative team. Mrs. Morrison and I have been speaking with teachers in our travels to the buildings and with the teacher leadership team. And we are talking about how we can segue right back into that additional day. It amounts to 2 days a month, but it's 2 days a month more than they have right now. So we're just trying to see how best to move in that direction without imposing upon some of the activities in which the teachers are engaging right now on Wednesdays to collaborate and to bring all of the kids together. That seems to be the one obstacle right now, is that the kids have expressed that they enjoy being together, and since they can't be together physically, they're together technologically, but we all know there's no replacement for being there in the classroom. So we are working on that.
I'm not getting that feedback on the Wednesday day, that there's so much togetherness going on in every single classroom. So I really want to explore going back to an in-person on Wednesday, even if it's twice a month. So if we can just add that to a future agenda and start discussing that, then I appreciate
They're
it.
already discussing it, so, but I agree with Mrs. LaRosa. I think that considering that we are doing a deep clean every day, every night already, still having half the school students in the building at a time on Wednesday does not change our risk profile, and I would like to see us at least bring that back as soon as we can, practically speaking.
I would agree. We did have discussion about that as to bring that day back if that's possible, to start to give them those 2 extra days, which is a lot. You know, I've got 2 in the high school, and an extra 2 days in the month would be beneficial.
Do you have a target date in mind that you would like to see this happen?
What's tomorrow?
No, it's Friday. It's not changing Friday.
Is it good?
Can you do it next week's the short week? We can do it next week. Because that would give the...
I'd like to see it as soon as possible.
Okay, I have to say the logical side of me needs to think that through, because right now the Wednesday is an alternate day for, to make sure that every child gets every course equally over the course of the month. So I need to plot it out on a piece of paper. But Mrs. Morrison and I will work on that, and we will get back to you. Either way, we'll update you tomorrow in the update.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you. Oh, were we like connecting that way?
Okay, Mr. McGinnis will discuss the meetings of the Audit and Finance Committee.
Two exciting committees.
We leave them that the exciting stuff for you, Ron.
The committee met Tuesday, October 6th, in the district office, in the library. We met with Don Hoffman and Rich Coffey from R.S. Abrams, who are our external auditors. The purpose of the meeting was to review the audit of the purchasing and disbursements, procedures, and policies. As part of that, they interviewed employees throughout many departments, facilities, IT, special education, athletics, etc. The findings were generally good. They did have some minor recommendations that will be included in a corrective action plan that will be submitted to the state. Examples of revising some procedures, streamlining processes to improve efficiency by using electronic submissions rather than some areas still use hard copy, having the second employee verify goods, consistent record retention, stuff like that. So overall, some minor adjustments, and a corrective action plan will be submitted. The meeting began at about 7:20, I think, or 7:25, and concluded about 7:40. Finance Committee followed the Audit Committee. We reviewed the treasurer's reports for the month of June, July, and August. We had 3 months because the school year has been closed out. The audit is nearly complete. We reviewed the extracurricular funds for the month of August, the payroll summary report for the month of September, the financial statements for the month of June, July, and August, the internal claims audit report for the month of September, as well as the system manager audit trail report for September. Payroll certifications for the weeks, payroll period ending September 18th and October 2nd. We were given the warrants for the month. Everything was found in order. And we reviewed the following board agenda items for finance. Approval of the budget transfers, approval of surplus for miscellaneous IT and AV equipment, approval of the 2020-2021 contracts for Kings Park, Nassau Suffolk Services for Autism at the Martin C. Barrow School, South Huntington School District, and Woods Services Incorporated. We also had some discussion items. We discussed the allocations to fund balance. So when the year was closed out, there was some surplus of, we had some lower spending and some lower revenue as well, but the net was a surplus, and we discussed how to allocate that to the various fund balances, and the meeting ended probably about 7:45.
Let's, if you have a question, please submit a card, and we'll get to it at the end. Mrs. Pilati, do you have that information with you by any chance? Yeah. Okay, go ahead. If you don't mind, Mrs. Pilati. Oh, you don't?
I have it.
If I find it, I can.
Mrs. Pilati, I have it.
Oh, thank you.
I want to see this. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So this is for fiscal year 2019-20, and as our audit is complete, the board will be allocating to the ERS reserve, that's the Employee Retirement System Reserve, $1.5 million. The TRS Subfund Reserve would be $896,925. The Unemployment Reserve will be $400,000. The Capital Reserve would be $2 million. And appropriated for tax relief, which is the appropriated fund balance, will be $1 million. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. McCann will discuss the meeting of the Buildings and Grounds Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Gaylor. The Buildings and Grounds Committee met on Tuesday, the 6th at 7:30. Board members in attendance were Mr. Gaylor, Mr. Compitello, Mr. Tussi, Mr. Antonello, and Mr. McGinnis. Administrators present were Mrs. Burns, Mrs. Morrison, Mr. Bossi, Mr. Taylor, and Mrs. Pilati. The first update we had was the bond update. Bond work continues from our bond. The main turf field of the high school, as we know, was finished. There's some minor repairs to the long jump area that are going to be included in some corrections. The new ramp leading up to the doorway in the back of the high school is complete. The door frame and door isn't installed yet. There was some COVID-related delays, but that's coming shortly. The Lions Path security booth is done. Some signs need to be added, but the phone and the camera are still waiting. This line's run, and that should be up and in motion. All the bathrooms throughout the entire district are finished. There's some finishing touches to be put on them, but if anyone's visited or had the chance to stop in one of those, we spoke about it. The buildings, most of the buildings were built in the 50s and 60s. The bathrooms were from the 50s and 60s, so we've got updated bathrooms in the entire district, which helps out with all. The pool is in progress. It's filled, but they're tweaking some of the systems, so that will open up some of the lifeguard program that will come back. The Udall home ec rooms are being renovated. That is in process. All the new blinds, all the rooms in all the buildings will be getting new blinds. That installation started this week at Bayview. As the blinds come in, they'll be installed throughout the entire district. The water fountains are still in the works. Was delayed a little bit. The generator project was submitted to the state for approval. The planetarium is still delayed due to COVID delays on the actual screen. We're looking to have that all finished and looking for a February open for a brand new renovated planetarium, which is great news. The Udall outside lights, there was an issue with some of the outside lights that were staying on during the day on the weekends when the custodial staff wasn't in there. They've since installed timer lights on those so that they can shut on and off based on the daylight, and those seem to be working well. South Shore Children's Center in Westbrook Elementary requested an awning to be put up in the back, so we're looking at filling that request. We spoke about, and I know there's been a lot of activity with petitions and trying to get the fields back open for some sporting events, and I know there was the crowd outside today. That is being examined and looked at from the safety aspect and what we can bring back. We want to move forward with an intramural program for the students, so we're looking at starting that. That will be obviously school run, following all the guidelines. But we understand there's a need in the community to get some of the extracurricular activities, and not just sports. We're talking about the clubs that are there. Point was brought up for extra help having that in person. That's going to start next week. I'm sure that'll be covered on the report. So that was from the buildings and grounds. The last part was that the elementary and middle school students are back in session full-time, and it is anticipated that additional staff may be necessary now that we have full-time, but we'll discuss that at our meetings. The meeting adjourned at 7:45.
Thank you, Mr. Marchand. Mr. Compitello will discuss the meeting of the Special Education Committee.
Good evening. Special Education Committee met at 08:30 on the 7th of October. Members in attendance, Ms. Dowling, Ms. Doherty, Ms. Morrison, Mr. McGinnis, and myself. Reviewed the special education services throughout the district. And special ed students are back in the high school, grades 9, 10, and 11. Grade 12 will be back as soon as scheduling problems are resolved, which should be shortly. And we secured it on OA 55. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Compitello. Mr. McCann will discuss the meeting of the Health and Wellness Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. The Health and Wellness Committee met on Tuesday, September 22nd. Members present were Tim Horan, Rhonda Pratt, Julie Canestra, Christina Kearney, Tara Howe, Barbara Henke, Craig Borowski, Kristen Kelly, Erin Harris, Lynn Summers, Eileen Skortis, Kimberly Scully, Rich McKay, Jennifer Mattione, and Trish Milletti. The financials were discussed from last year. We did an overview of the past initiatives from the previous year. A lot of discussion was around the Color Run, which is the Health and Wellness big fundraiser that usually occurs around this time. Obviously with COVID that got delayed, but they switched it to a virtual event that'll take place on Sunday, October 18th. You can go on My School Bucks and register for that event. That just opened up yesterday, I believe. I registered. The cost is free. We'll be selling some accessories to raise some money there. The vendors that participated in the shirts from last year, we've again gave them the this event for free just because it's a virtual event. In-person and pickup and registration will be October 17th and 18th for anything that was ordered. You can order shirts, sunglasses, dye packets. We're really encouraging people to capture the events with photos at home, to participate in outdoor activity with your children, and submit photos for it. We are looking at a cellular safety virtual presentation coming up, and also bringing back Kevin Alter, who is the virtual presentation titled The Addict's Diary, which was well received. The next meeting will be Tuesday, October 13th at 10 a.m., and that will be a virtual meeting.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. Mrs. Pilati will discuss financial matters and business items.
Thank you, Mr. Geller. The treasurer's report for the month of August had a beginning balance of $70,835,636.62 and an ending balance of $66,491,986.32. May I have a motion for the approval of budget transfers 3935 through 3960 for the general fund and 3937 through 3959 for the capital fund?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have a motion for the approval of the 2020-21 contracts as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have a motion for the approval of miscellaneous IT surplus equipment?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a motion for the approval of the 2020-2021 building emergency response plans?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I have a motion for the approval of the resolution regarding local government records?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I have a motion for the approval of the stipulation of settlement for student A?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D has been removed from the agenda because South Shore Children's Center of West Islip decided they did no longer wanted to the additional route. And can I have a motion for the approval of the Suffolk School Bus Stop Arm Enforcement Program?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mrs. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Geller. First of all, earlier this evening during the personnel agenda, you heard that we accepted the retirement of Patty Ford. Patty was the security receptionist that greeted you when you visited the building. I had the pleasure of working with her when I was principal in the building. So we do wish Mrs. Ford much good luck and health in her retirement after 20 years here in West Islip.
And let me just say that Mrs. Ford took that position quite seriously.
Oh, yes.
No matter how long I've been on the board, if I tried to get into that building, she wanted to see my identification. She did the job with a great deal of integrity.
So our elementary and middle school students, as you know, returned full-time to the classroom setting, and it has gone beautifully. And I would like to extend my appreciation to our administrators, teachers, and support staff who really have worked tirelessly to ensure that our safety measures remained intact, even though we doubled the occupancy of the buildings literally overnight. So really, thank you to all. And I'd also like to thank our parents who have been transporting their children to school each day. And approximately, I'd probably say 2/3 to 3/4 of you have been doing that. I know that in some cases you made sacrifices to get to work late or do whatever you needed to do to help us out in the beginning when we did not know what to expect. But at this time, as we continue to take baby steps back to our more traditional way of doing things, I'd encourage you to put your children back on the buses. They are running well below capacity, and we would like to start minimizing the car traffic in our driveways at each of the buildings. And once we are able to do that, we will be able to shrink those arrival times in the morning. In some cases, they're up to a half hour.
So we'd like to shrink those so we can extend our learning time during the school day. And just remember that all bus riders must wear a mask without exception. And finally, I am delighted to share with you that our own West Islip High School has been recognized as a 2020 National Blue Ribbon School, one of 3 on Long Island this year, and the only school in Suffolk County. I congratulate Mr. Antonello, because his district, his high school was one of the ones in Suffolk County, Nassau County. The National Blue Ribbon Schools program recognizes public and private elementary, middle, and high schools based on their overall academic excellence or their progress in closing achievement gaps among student subgroups. So our high school was nominated in the category for exemplary high-performing schools. So success such as this really confirms our district, our entire district's commitment to a culture of excellence. And the high school is the well-deserved recipient of this award, but we celebrate it with all of you because we know that this recognition reflects the dedication and commitment of not only every faculty and staff member in the district, but also all of you. So thank you for your support, and we're just thrilled to be able to share this honor. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Burns. So I'm sure many of you know that we held our developer held the first Massera open house forum last night, and we have 2 more scheduled so far. There will be additional ones, but the next 2 are scheduled for 10/13 and 10/22, and based on the way it went last night, we're going to change it up a little bit in that there's a maximum of 50, based on state law, people allowed at one time. But what we saw last night is that we can actually break it into 2 shifts. So the first shift will be, say, 7 to 7:45, and the second group of residents can come in from 7:45, 7:50 to 8:30. So although we have the early sessions are already booked on both nights, if you go through the website and request a reservation to attend, those will be opening up. So in other words, it would be the second session of each of those nights.
So there's 50 people per session, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? All right. Mr. Kern.
Yeah, from the podium? Will the chair?
Yeah, the podium would be best, just to make sure we can all hear you. Thanks.
My name is William, is this on? You can hear me? All right, thank you. My name is William Kern, as president here in West Islip. Thank you to the board for listening to me, and a special thank you to Superintendent Burns. As a parent, actually, the opening of schools has much exceeded what I expected. It's been great. My daughter's transitioned from Blue School to here at Beach Street, and it's been great. So I'm up here today, and I'd like to see the pools open. My daughter swims with West Islip Swim Club, and on every survey that you guys sent over the summer, in addition to saying I want to see the children in the classroom, I also want to see the pool open and the fields open, because I feel that is an integral part of kids growing up and socialization. 7 months ago, I wholeheartedly agreed with the school shutdown. At that point, too much was unknown. And here we are 7 months later, and a lot of the unknowns are known. Wear a mask, wash your hands, and distance, and you limit the way you get COVID. Early this spring, USA Swimming, in conjunction with the CDC recommendations, put out a USA Swimming COVID guideline. And USA Swimming, for those of you that don't know, is the governing body for all amateur swimming, from clubs like us here in West Islip all the way up to the Olympics. And they put out those rules, and it's very similar to the rules that the state put out. So for the summertime, we secured a pool for summer training. Our kids swam June, July, and August over the Long Island Yacht Club. 5 days a week, we had over 100 kids swimming a day at all various times. All the children, we took attendance, who was there, no parents allowed in the pool deck. We took everyone's temperature. Children were told no locker room, bathroom only if it's an emergency. So we did that all summer with 0 incidents. No one got sick, no one anything, and again, we knew who was there, and fall, knowing that the high school pool was still closed. And we got goals here, so we thought. And we had 1 or 2 practices there, and then a private for-profit swimming club came in and outbid us. They gave a lot of money. We're a nonprofit, we 501 status. So they outbid us, so we had no pool at all. In that time, the swim meets at Eisenhower, where hundreds of kids from Long Island went to compete, over 50 kids from West Islip there to compete, but we were at a competitive disadvantage because we had no pool for swimming. And again, kids followed the USA swimming guidelines, they distanced themselves, they wore a mask when they're in the water. And the last one was over 2 weeks ago, and there was another one that was about 3 weeks ago. 0 COVID incidents coming out of it. So now the YMCA said that we could swim there. Problem with YMCA is $25 per session per child. So my kid, instead of swimming at West Islip High School 5 days a week, she could go to YMCA for 3 days a week, but it cost me $75 a week for her to go there, $300 a month. Not only one kid, but friends of mine, 2 or 3 kids, it cost them hundreds a month for kids to swim. Fortunately, our board is made up of numerous people. We have a physician's assistant, 2 RNs, and a high school teacher who is also a varsity coach. Those professionals have seen firsthand how COVID has ravaged the healthcare system and how it's wrecked the educational system, and how we're just going back. So every decision that they make, they're cognizant of what's going on with COVID. So that's why we're asking them back to the pool. And the kids have been great. The kids want to compete. They wear their masks, they socially distance, they show up in their bathing suits, they wear little towel pants, they get down, they put their gear down, they're in the pool. And when they're in the pool, they cover with chlorine, and all studies have shown chlorine kills the COVID.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Sure.
How many students, children do you have at a time in the pool area? Are you limited by the number, or is there a regulation on that?
They have USA Swimming, their guidelines are the same as New York State. They go by the amount of kids in the lane. And again, they want them, 6 feet apart when they're swimming. So you could put in the USA Swimming, their guidelines and the state guidelines.
So your club, when you have a practice, how many kids would be in the pool area during your
You can have
practice?
in excess of 30 kids in the pool, and that's even following, the state guidelines is even higher. The state put out back in August. And the state guidelines, they're very strict. It doesn't even apply to us because we don't have meets here at West Islip.
No, I know, but asking us to open the pool, you would essentially have 30
We would
kids.
ask you to follow the New York State guidelines. I don't have them in front of me. I know that Coach Tom has emailed the USA Swimming guidelines and the New York State guidelines to Tim Moran. He does have a copy. I can forward each one of you that.
So maybe if you heard earlier, we are in the process of reviewing the
Yes.
usage for the public of the fields as well as the other district spaces. The way we're going to look at it, we'll follow CDC and state guidelines in terms of risk, indoor, outdoor, density, all that sort of thing. But we are in the process of taking a really hard look at it, seeing what we can reopen. So,
Sure, I understand that. Just right now,
and anything you could send us would,
well, Hills
would be
East,
great.
Farming there, Hop Hog, Connecticut, and Sable, they're letting clubs swim there. Hop Hog is letting club kids swim before school and after school. And in West Islip, we can't even send our kids to these other clubs because they're not even allowing more kids in because there's no pools. It's just that I'd like people, when you make a decision, realize this health crisis is 7 months old. The West Islip Swim Club has a 4-month track record within that 7 months of no incidents. We contact trace and we follow these kids around. We've had 0 incidents. And West Islip Swim Club has been part of this town since 1961. And we want to continue that. But it's becoming a tremendous financial burden on people to get their kids into a pool. And that's quite unfair when we have a pool right here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Oblash? Just so everybody knows, the board members know, Mr. Oblash did hand in a stack of petitions earlier. We have them, thank you.
Good evening. I want to thank you again for the opening of the school and also for emailing me back and getting back to me right away in terms of the fields. I do appreciate that. I just want to kind of recap a couple of things. As you already know, our community has a unique situation here. We don't have any town of ISO fields within West ISO. And I did follow up that document on Monday to show you that. We are the only one in the town of ISO that does not have any town playing fields. So it's a major problem, particularly for this town. I know Bill just spoke about Hop Pond opening up their pools. They've also opened up their fields as well, and again, they have town fields to use. Back in March, as you know, the highest authority in New York State, Governor Cuomo, closed the schools, and rightfully so, I believe, at that time. That same governor has since recommended a return to youth sports, and that includes swimming, field hockey, lacrosse, and soccer. And they've also issued the safety guidelines that are currently being implemented. On a side note, the American Academy of Pediatrics has also endorsed the return to youth sports as well. Unlike reopening the schools, the work has been done in terms of player safety guidelines. I know Long Island Junior has already adopted those guidelines, and I'm sure every other sport out there has adopted them as well. So there's not much legwork in terms of the school or the school board to handle anything in terms of player safety. It's been done already. Every team has apps to track player attendance for contact tracing purposes. But before I get to my question, I just want to acknowledge that there are clearly people sitting up here probably in the audience on both sides of the issue, and I completely understand that. However, there is a clear difference when it comes to sports in school. Although every child must be educated and attend school, playing a youth sport it's a choice. It's a parent choice. And it's a choice that our West ISO community has made loud and clear based on the over 500 kids that are registered for soccer, the field hockey players registered, the 200 parents and kids that showed up outside this evening, the 650 plus signatures. I still have people emailing me today asking if they can sign the petition. This is a community that has a great sports tradition, and we're depriving the community of continuing that tradition right now. I ask that you don't allow your personal feelings make that choice for us by restricting the fields that we have here in West ISO. There's no need to further punish our children, considering all the changes they've gone through. I work in a nearby school district, and I personally believe that those consequences that they're facing right now with their world flipped upside down is going to be far greater. The lack of seeing smiling faces now with masks on, kids don't have that ability anymore. They're no longer working in close-knit groups due to social distancing guidelines. And I have no problem with those guidelines in the school. However, that's affecting them. They have an inactive lifestyle now, stuck behind screens without sports. But you guys can change that last one. You can bring back an active lifestyle. You can bring back, because when they're playing, you can see their faces. You can bring back the smiles that they can see. And like I said, all of the guidelines are already set for you here in West ISO. There's one thing that's not debatable right now, and that's the fact that everyone is safer outside than in a closed space such as a school. So I understand the challenges of bringing back high school students based on building limits. I don't understand why the fields at this time are not open based on the most ventilated area there is, which is outside. So I guess my only question for those of you sitting up there, if you do have an objection to opening the fields, because perhaps not all of you do, I'm wondering what that objection is at this time, because our season has started already, or the seasons have started already. The return to play happened back on September 20th, and it's going to end in early November, so I'm hoping that something we can reach a resolution that immediately returns the field to our children.
So, Mr. Oblage, the board has already asked the administration to begin, that Mrs. Burns can explain the process a little better, but to begin streamlining the guidelines and to feed that back and any other requirements back to the club. And we will then work with the club to make sure that everything is, hashed out correctly. You want to speak to it, please?
So we have been working, actually I see Mr. O'Farrell here, the secondary principals, Mr. Umperan and I have met and discussed what we can do and a timeline, and we're trying to come up with a timeline that's realistic. But to Mr. Geller's point, The interim guidance for sports and recreation or pool use, or there's a million links, as you know, in that document, that does govern youth sports. But when you're playing on district fields, we need to abide by the district plan. So we are in the process of trying to marry the two to make sure that as a school district, we remain in compliance and to communicate that. So we're in the process of putting a document together, which hopefully we'll get to the clubs sooner rather than later. I thought it was, I didn't realize that there was an app, so I think some of the questions will be easy responses for you, because it sounds like many of the organizations have already addressed some of the issues. When you get that back to us, I know that there are addendums to the insurance with COVID, from what I'm understanding, not just from your groups, but from PTA groups and other groups as well. The other thing as a district is we need to be consistent across the board, because certainly, and many of you have heard me say it before, athletics is very important to you and your family, as much as music and other activities are important. And you're right, unfortunately, at this point, we're really limited and committed to those outdoor activities because they are the safer activities at this time. We'll continue to look at what we can do indoors, but we are actively working on that as quickly as we can, so we hope to get that to you sooner rather than later. And we understand the pressing timeline with your season.
Is there a time frame? Is there a consideration of reaching out to districts such as Massapequa that have already opened up their fields and to see how they did it and their process?
I can certainly reach out to Massapequa. I have reached out to my other colleagues here in the ISA cluster of school districts. And, most of them, as you know, are still closed pretty much hard and fast, except for a few things here and there. So, but I can certainly reach out to Massapequa and see what they do. I know that they have a very organized system, but they also have a lot more with John Byrne Park and all of the others, a lot more flexibility over there.
Yeah, because they've opened up all of their schools over there. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. O'Cloughlin.
Thank you.
Mr. Marmo?
I have some questions on the Miss Sarah's sale. So, first, Mr. McCann, I believe you were the only one that didn't support the sale in last month's vote. Why? Can you explain why that was?
I abstained from the vote.
Right.
Initially, I was looking to just have some more official proposals from there, but I respect what the board has done. And, we did a thorough process from it, but I still, for myself, I would still like to see more different proposals, but I thoroughly think that the board's job was done there, but at that point, I just want to abstain from the vote.
Okay, and could you explain what the district is receiving for the property?
What we're receiving for the property?
Yes.
$8.545 million plus a $1 million donation.
A donation.
Correct.
Okay. So what is the value of the Miss Sarah property? Is it 8.5 or is it 8.5 plus the extra million? What is the value? Should be a simple answer.
What's the point of the question, Mr. Marmo?
The point of the question is there is no donation, is there?
There is a donation of $1 million.
So is this donation voluntary?
Is the donation what?
Voluntary.
Yes, it's a donation.
So he doesn't have to,
It's in the contract, but it's a donation.
it's in the contract that he does it, and
Yes.
that's a donation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The website shows that proceeds from the sale will be used to offset the tax leaving. Is this district policy? Is this an education law? What is that? It says that it has to go to reduce the tax leaving. It's on the website.
Yes, Per education law, when you sell a property, first you have to pay down any related debt to that property. There is no related debt on that property for this school district. Therefore, any remaining proceeds have to be put into a reserve for tax reduction, and that reserve can only be used to offset the tax levy annually up to 10 years. So it has to be used within 10 years.
And if the district was to pay for the cost of the field through the appropriation or through the budget process, would the district receive a reimbursement from state aid for that?
I'm not sure.
If we were to build this field rather than having it donated to us, is that cost for us subject to state aid?
I believe the donation is
Not the
being...
No, you're saying if we did it through capital.
Oh, right, it was tied to a project that was state aided.
But in this particular case,
No, it
it would not be.
No, it would not be. If it's in isolation, no.
It's a donation, it's not subject to state aid. If we did it through the appropriation, through the budget process, through the capital, whatever you want to call it,
No, that's what I just answered, Mr.
Right.
Morrow.
So the
It
answer
would
is
not be.
It's no either way, really.
no even way. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tarantolo?
So my daughter just started school in pre-K in Radicott. She hasn't had a teacher already for 3 weeks, and I'm curious why. She's had a substitute in there.
So unfortunately, the teacher that was assigned to that section resigned at the very beginning of the school year.
What day exactly?
I'd have to go back and check the minutes from that board meeting.
Pretty sure it was late August, but go ahead.
Yep, okay, it could have been late
So
August.
it's a month and a half later. Does it take 6 weeks to find someone?
We held her to the 30 days. We have a process that we are required to follow, which includes posting the position for 2 weeks, screening the resumes, interviewing the candidates, and we are now at the final stage whereby the finalists, I will be interviewing the finalists. So we anticipate we will be appointing somebody at our planning session. However, if we appoint someone that is currently committed to another school district, it is possible that that person will be held by that school district for 30 days, just as we held the previous pre-K teacher to her 30-day requirement. It is nothing that we planned. We were very disappointed, but we do have a sub in there right now. She will be there for the duration until we hire and place a new teacher in there.
Understood. So on the 28th, why didn't you start looking for a new teacher? Why did we wait until a week or two ago? It doesn't take 6 weeks to find a teacher, right? Can we agree on that?
I would have to go back and look at the timeline.
Okay, so then I'm going to give you a call tomorrow, we can discuss it privately, because I think it's a disservice to the children to put them with Miss Gallagher. Now all of a sudden there's a sub, now all of a sudden there's another person. I asked my daughter who her teacher, she has no idea. Because every week it's a new teacher. That's not conducive. You didn't talk about pre-K, or you talked about kindergarten through 12 multiple times. Why are we not talking about pre-K? It's part of it's part of the district, right?
Yes.
I think we are getting ignored, and I'm not happy about it, and I will make sure to be on top of this situation as things keep coming forward. Because I was told 2 weeks ago, oh, we're interviewing. You can't just tell us the parents. I want to know what point in the process that we're in. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask if this was your daughter or your son. I don't think you'd be thrilled either. I understand the teacher put you in a bad position, but that's not an excuse.
Mr. Tarantolo, it's a probationary position, and I have to go back and figure out why we are in the 5th week, I guess it is, of the process. But again, we have a posting process, we have a paper screening process, we have a committee interview process, and all of this is done within the school day, which sometimes can be challenging when we want teachers and principals sitting on a committee. And I don't disagree with you, because you know what? I want consistency in that classroom as well. It's very important to us. but we are at the very final stages of this process. We have narrowed it down to a few finalists, and we are about to schedule them to meet with me, at which time I plan to make a decision and bring my recommendation to the board at the planning session, which is, I believe, October 22nd, if I remember correctly. But if we could move things more quickly, we would. The hiring process is one of the most frustrating processes because it is more time consuming than anybody likes.
Understood, but obviously, it should have been expedited, right? Maybe it typically takes 4 weeks, you guys should have pushed for it to happen a little quicker, because I'm not suffering, my kid is suffering. And you wouldn't be thrilled if these were your kids suffering. And my daughter has to go wear a mask for 2.5 hours, she doesn't know what's going on, it's a very scary time for these kids. And I would appreciate a little more empathy on your part, pushing this process through quicker. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that. And I think if it was your child, you'd be just as upset as I am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parenteau. Mr. Semkin?
Mr. Geller, Superintendent Byrne, I wanted to start with a congratulatory.
Can you speak a little closer to the microphone, please?
I want to start with a congratulatory note for last night. I thought the developer presented themselves as well as they could under the circumstances. I think the format worked, and I'm happy to see that you're going to be able to cycle more people through. The reason I've come is, since this process started in the first community meeting last February, I filed a freedom of information letter and obtained copies of the signed agreement between the district and Jamie Winkler Real Estate. I've done some looking through the minutes of the board, and I'm a little concerned about how essentially a no-bid contract went out for potentially as much as $400,000 more. And when I asked Superintendent Burns about this last night, she recommended that I run it to you. So, Mr. Geller,
Okay.
we get multiple bids for large capital projects.
Mhm.
Why weren't there multiple bids for this?
So, by state law, professional services are not required to be bid in that regard. That said, when we went to lease the other buildings, being Carnegie and Westbrook, back in 2011, we did do an RFP for real estate services. There were 3 companies that responded. One of them was Winkler Real Estate. Winkler Real Estate was chosen as the best choice for the district. And in the board's view, she has done an exceptional job of representing us in this time span. And so based on the state law not requiring the RFP, and based on our excellent experience with her, we chose her to continue representing us.
Understood. And I'm glad that she's done well in the district with the rentals. The rentals are $10 to $11 a square foot per month. This is $8.5 million. I'm not saying it's out of her reach, but this is a far larger.
Mrs. Winkler has extensive experience in commercial real estate as
I
well.
look through, she represents the East Side School District.
And to this point, we are very pleased with her representation of us in this matter as well.
Okay, that's great. I would ask, I had a conversation with Superintendent Burns last night. Has anyone on the board had any past or any current relationship with Ms. Winkler? Does anybody have a family, professional, business relationship with her where they have used her services?
Not to my knowledge, no.
That's everybody?
Yes.
Well, in full disclosure, 15 years ago, the house I purchased was represented by Winkler.
Understood.
That was it.
So the question I have is, does anybody currently lease through Ms. Winkler's group?
No.
No.
Ms. Rosa?
Mr. Semkin, I do not lease through Ms. Winkler.
Is there a reason she represents the property that the business is in?
I have no idea why. She had nothing to do with my current lease with East Islip.
Okay. Thank you for making that clear. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How's Jacob?
Tall.
Yeah. Tell him I said hi.
Will do. He just came back. They COVIDed him for 2 weeks and
Yeah.
he's going back again. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn to executive session where the board will discuss personnel, negotiations, and litigation? At the conclusion of executive session, the board will reconvene to public session in the district clerk's office boardroom, actually will be in the library, to consider any items for which a vote is required. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all for coming. Have a good evening.